Hello everyone! Thanks for stopping by to hear what else I saw in November that I haven't already told you about. Movie number 1 is 1938's... What is it? Four Men and a Prayer! When an English colonel is dishonorably discharged and then murdered, his sons set about clearing his name. This was directed by John Ford, but before you get too excited about that, it's kind of a mess. The tone is insanely inconsistent. Does it want to be a drama about four outraged sons driven to action by filial duty and grief? Does it want to be a globe-trotting thriller about four amateur agents getting tangled in a bloody revolution? Or does it want to be a screwball comedy about four buffoons bumbling in and out of dangerous situations? It's got an impressive cast. The sons are played by George Sanders, Richard Green, David Niven, and William Henry. Richard Green takes the lead, which is an interesting sign of the times. If this had been made a few years later, it might have been Niven or Sanders who received top billing. Loretta Young plays the leading lady, a headstrong American in hot pursuit of her man, and there are appearances from C. Aubrey Smith, Alan Hale, and Ford favorites Barry Fitzgerald and John Carradine. All this talent, however, doesn't keep the movie from feeling disjointed and lacking a sense of cohesion. Many scenes feel staged, dialogue is kinda corny, and the brothers are often just too silly. Niven is pretty much exactly what you expect, and for some reason he does a Donald Duck impression a few times, while Sanders, as the barrister elder brother, seems slightly out of place, like he's too mature for this group. Green doesn't really distinguish himself as the lead, and Young is nearly upstaged by her bold costumes. They are striking ensembles, but the only outfit I didn't find comically absurd was this wispy evening gown. I would have accepted that just at the beginning, the inciting action was meant to be sober before things take a lighter, more adventurous turn, if only the change were consistent. But it isn't. And it results in one rather tasteless scene where a crowd of people is gunned down, a shocking, pivotal moment that has its sting dulled by the frivolity and froth that surrounds it. It just doesn't feel right, and I don't know who's to blame here, Ford, the screenwriter, 20th Century Fox. The movie was fun at times, but I spent a good deal of it bewildered by the tonal shifts and put off by the artificiality. Movie number 2 is 1939's Only Angels Have Wings, directed by Howard Hawks. Jean Arthur steps off a boat in South America and gets drawn into the high-stakes drama of mail flyers at a bush airport run by Cary Grant. His hardened approach sets her off, even as she falls for him. The film co-stars Thomas Mitchell, Rita Hayworth, and Richard Barthelmess. This is one of the great films of 1939. One of the forgotten of the great films of 1939, I should say. Maybe if there hadn't been so many other home runs that year, this would be remembered more often. With Cary Grant and Jean Arthur headlining, you might expect a comedy, and it does have comedy in it, but it has a lot of other things too. Romance, drama, suspense, action, with some thrilling flight sequences. Primarily, though, it's about the emotions involved in this dangerous work, and how those who commit themselves to it respond to tragedy and loss. I'd call it a tearjerker. The first time I saw it, I'm pretty sure I cried. Being a Howard Hawks film, it's a busy picture. Everyone is active, personalities are diverse, dialogue is naturalistic and moves quickly, and sometimes it overlaps. At 121 minutes, though, it's able to take its time with the heavy moments when necessary, and all the main characters get a chance to shine. Grant and Arthur are both really good, but for me, it was Thomas Mitchell who stole the show. I watched this the first time years ago as part of TCM's Summer Under the Stars tribute to Thomas Mitchell. I saw Stagecoach, and then this came on after, and that double bill secured him a spot on my favorite character actors list. Of course, the same year that he was in Stagecoach and Only Angels Have Wings, he was also in Gone with the Wind, and he was in Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, playing Jean Arthur's buddy, so it's nice to see them share a few low-key one-on-ones here as well. Some viewers may find this plot less accessible, and first-timers may be taken aback by the tone. The movie starts off seemingly in one genre and then takes an abrupt, sobering turn. It's not unlike Four Men and a Prayer, prayer in that respect, and maybe if I hadn't seen it before, I would be saying, this movie does the same thing! But unlike that, I feel this one hangs together more consistently. The shifts are there, but they're more evenly spaced out. And I don't recall having an issue or struggling to follow the story when I saw it the first time. Movie number 3 is 1958's The Man Who Died Twice, a crime drama in which a nightclub owner who has recently been killed in a car accident becomes implicated in a narcotics ring. It's impressive how much they cram into this 70-minute movie. Maybe it's too much. It becomes a challenge to keep up with some of the plot details as they're hurled at you, but I appreciate the complexity and that time is taken to develop some side characters like the 2 hitmen or the hotel's meddling busybody. Rod Cameron stars opposite Vera Ralston as the nightclub singer/widow and Mike Mazurki as her faithful bartender, a character who may be a little too similar to his Moose Malloy from 1946's Murder My Sweet. I did like this one, but it has a major flaw. There's something about the movie that's a huge spoiler, which diminishes its effectiveness later on. But if I say what it is, I'll be spoiling it too, so I'd rather just let you figure it out if you watch the movie yourself. Movie number 4 is 1956's Gunslinger. When the local marshal is slain, his wife takes his place to avenge his death and purify the town of evildoers. This low-budget western was directed by Roger Corman, and boy have I been looking forward to it. I wanted to love it so badly. I wish it lived up to my expectations. One of Corman's most frequent leading ladies, Beverly Garland, plays the female marshal. I loved her in Corman's It Conquered the World, which I reviewed earlier this year? Last year? I don't remember. Another movie from 1956 where she gets gutsy with a gun. In that, she has her big awesome moment at the end. But here, she is feisty from the start, and it's pretty hilarious to see her firing away like Yosemite Sam without any qualms about hitting her target. I guess that shows her self-confidence. She's not the only one that does this, though. Everybody pulls the trigger willy-nilly. Allison Hayes chooses the scenery as her rival, the ruthless owner of a saloon who's secretly buying up property. Her flunky is played by Jonathan Hayes, spelled differently, another Corman regular, whose devotion is wounded when she hires an old flame to take out her enemy for her. This assassin is played by John Ireland, who flirts liberally with both ladies, something that took up more runtime than I would have wished. I've really liked John Ireland in a couple movies, but he kind of underwhelmed me here. He either needed to play it up or play it down. I've seen this called surprisingly good and entertainingly bad, and I can't decide which category I would put it in. I wanted it to be the former. It really wasn't. Failing that, I'd be content with the latter, except it wasn't quite over the top enough for that. I do admire Garland's chutzpah, and there are a couple wild moments in the beginning, like her husband's killer bragging about his deed while standing right over the grave, and she's feet away, and just a minute later, she just wastes him. And then also, she gets into a barroom brawl with Hayes, which is ridiculous, and makes you say, oh, it's that kind of movie, is it? So, there are these hilarious moments that are pretty awesome. It just didn't sustain that same energy all the way through. I was also distracted by the way the film looks. Sometimes it looks great, sometimes the color's kind of murky, which made me wonder if I'd been hoodwinked into watching a colorization, but apparently this was shot in color. I may give it another try sometime because I'd really like to enjoy it more. Is there a better copy out there than what I watched? Would it look better in black and white? Or would that not make any difference? Movie number 5 is 1944's The White Cliffs of Dover. Irene Dunne plays an American woman who has spent most of her life in England. Working as a nurse during the war, she waits anxiously for news of her son and recalls how she met his father on the eve of the First World War. The film is based on the poem that inspired the famous Vera Lynn song, and hearing that song on the radio on Veterans Day is what reminded me that I never did get around to watching this, so I spooled it up on YouTube. To call it a war movie would be a stretch, since there's far more time spent on the romance. Most of the film is a flashback, where Dunn's young Anglophile soaks up all things England with an eagerness that's a little embarrassing. I like British stuff too, but I wouldn't lose my cool around the locals, you know? But in the toughest of times, she turns fiercely patriotic and defensive of her native land. Alan Marshall co-stars as the handsome baronet she meets, and the fine supporting cast includes Frank Morgan, Gladys Cooper, Dame Mae Whitty, C. Aubrey Smith, again, Roddy McDowall playing her son as a boy, and Peter Lawford playing her son grown up, and in a brief, uncredited role, Elizabeth Taylor. It's another tearjerker, and Irene Dunne excels as always in a role that is both heartwarming and heartbreaking. There are dashes of humor, but I was left feeling more depressed than anything else. I also felt the movie was longer than necessary. I don't mind a movie being over 2 hours if that's what's required to tell the story, but I don't think it was here. There were numerous times when I expected a montage or a smoothly edited jump forward into the next sequence, the next phase, but instead, the next scene would be a continuation of the current sequence, showing the next thing that happened, and the next thing. We're accustomed to film using visual shorthand to tell a large story in a limited span of time, but there wasn't enough of that shorthand used here. Too much is spelled out, which consequently gave the film a plodding, ponderous feel. Not that it's a bad movie, I liked it well enough, but it dragged. Movie number 6 is 1957's The True Story of Jesse James, one of various celluloid accounts of the infamous Wild West bank robber. This take stars Robert Wagner as Jesse and Jeffrey Hunter, Yum, as his older brother Frank. As his capture seems imminent, Jesse's loved ones recall the events that brought him to this point. It's an okay movie. I often find Robert Wagner a dull performer, but he's serviceable, and Jeffrey Hunter was delicious and engaging as ever. There's also Agnes Moorehead as their mother, Hope Lang as Jesse's girl, and John Carradine as a preacher. The film, directed by Nicholas Ray, also looks very good, with rich colors and moody lighting, making some of the action scenes more artsy. The flashback device is very cliché, though, and despite the film's premise, I never felt it fully accomplished the two goals it was striving for. One, to help us know the real man behind the legend, and two, to convince us to see him in a positive, forgiving light. Only rarely did Wagner seem to fully inhabit the character he was playing, and I was never persuaded to view him as a sympathetic anti-hero. I felt pretty cynical at the end, which I don't think is the emotion they wanted to inspire. The movie's greatest advantage was its visuals and the reassuring presence of Jeffrey Hunter. It does have that going for it. Movie number 7 is 1999's Bicentennial Man. Set in the then near future, 2005, a man brings a state-of-the-art robot home to his family. Though Andrew, played by Robin Williams, is designed to be a household appliance, he exhibits unusual personality traits, including a desire to create and to connect with humans. I remember when this came out, and I think I was kind of excited for it, but none of the kids at school who saw it seemed to like it, so I lost interest. Fast forward to September or October, I happened to mention that no one ever talks about Bicentennial Man, and the very next day, I heard someone refer to it. It was like a sign spurring me to check it out after all these years. So I watched it, and, well, it wasn't what I expected, but it wasn't bad. It's based on a story and subsequent novel by Isaac Asimov. I read the story last year, and to a certain extent, this is a decent adaptation. I understand now, though, why none of my peers liked it. For a child, it's probably really boring, especially compared to how it was advertised. I recall this being marketed as a family comedy. I think this came out around the same time as the Flubber remake, and they kind of advertised it along the same lines, but it's definitely not a kids' movie. I was surprised. I think it had a PG rating, and there were some things in there that I was like, well, that's not kid friendly. But while there are some humorous moments, this is a drama, and sometimes it's a heavy hitting one. Robin Williams is very good in one of his more understated roles. He was one of the funniest people to ever work in motion pictures, but he could also convey tremendous sadness. I didn't find myself laughing much during this movie, but I was moved a few times. The special effects are impressive too. I can't help thinking that not only was this movie ahead of its time, but an enormous amount of money must have gone into making it, and they probably expected it to be bigger than it was. The supporting cast is strong as well. Sam Neill as Andrew's first advocate, and Beth Davidtz in dual roles as time advances, Oliver Platt as a robotics expert. Where the film falters is its latter section, where it veers from the source material, at least the version of the source material that I read, and attempts to become a love story. Andrew is a compelling character, a sympathetic and endearing machine. But despite their best efforts, they could not get me on board with a physical, robot-human romance. I'm sorry, it's just too weird. It's a lengthy film, 130 minutes long, and I may have come away happier if they had trimmed some of that storyline. Movie number 8 is 1984's Red Dawn. In this Cold War-era teen-centric action film, students discover that World War III has begun when foreign invaders drop outside their school and open fire. A group of boys manages to flee to the mountains, but they'll have to take extreme measures if they want to survive. I've been hearing about this movie for a long time from my mom and my brother. The spooky opening sequence with the innocuous classroom setting shockingly transformed into a war zone made a deep impression on my brother in his youth. The rest of the movie is more or less a survival and combat film, with the boys, fueled by trauma and loss, banding together to form a guerrilla unit of resistance fighters. My brother's not into that angle so much, but I liked it. There are many intriguing concepts blended together here. The invasion of a small Colorado town that's completely unprepared and easily subdued, Cubans and Russians working together, Soviet re-education camps on American soil, occupied citizens acquiescing to a Vichy-style government, but the story centers around novice schoolboys figuring out how to be soldiers and not lose their humanity. Patrick Swayze stars as the leader, with Charlie Sheen as his younger brother. Leah Thompson and Jennifer Grey play a couple girls that join the group, plus there are strong appearances by Harry Dean Stanton, Ben Johnson, and Powers Booth, who's rather appealing here, which is not my usual reaction to him. I really liked the movie. Among the younger actors, there were some bumpy moments, but I thought it was very good. The issues I had may be specific to this particular DVD release, and I still have it from the library, so I can show you the one I'm talking about. Number 1, the disc is one of those double-sided affairs, standard version on one side, widescreen on the other. I'm pretty sure I put the right side in because the aspect ratio looked correct, but the picture didn't fill the whole screen. We had black bars on all 4 sides. It could be user error. I will allow that that's a possibility. Number 2, none of the foreign dialogue was translated. Now, that could be fine if it's just a couple lines here, a couple lines there, but there are whole scenes where the dialogue is only in Spanish or Russian, and it goes on for a couple minutes each time. I could get the gist of the Spanish, but my parents couldn't, and the Russian was Greek to all of us. So, either this was an interesting choice, or the distributor forgot to include subtitles for those scenes. I see there have been new collector's editions released on 4K UHD and Blu-ray, and hopefully they don't have these issues. The good news is, though I wasn't able to watch it under optimal circumstances, I still enjoyed the movie. And movie number 9 is 1949's All the King's Men, a political drama about the rise and fall of Willie Stark, a self-described hick whose humble, honest persona starts a populist movement that carries him straight to the governor's mansion. This was adapted and directed by Robert Rossen from the award-winning novel by Robert Penn Warren. It stars Broderick Crawford, who came up during dinner a few weeks ago. Actually, it was Edgar Buchanan who came up, but I pictured Broderick Crawford instead. When I realized my mistake, I was like, well, who the heck am I thinking of? And I had to go through the alphabet a couple of times. Accidentally thought I was thinking of Burgess Meredith for a second there, but I finally got it. And the whole conversation reminded me that I meant to watch this movie months ago. I didn't warm to Crawford the way I have in a couple other films, but he gives an electric performance that wowed audiences and earned him an Academy Award. Co-starring is John Ireland, again, as a reporter who takes up his cause. I thought he was equally good. There's also Joanne Dru, John Derek, and Mercedes McCambridge, who also won an Oscar for her striking debut as Stark's hard-boiled advisor. I went into this with certain expectations, and it did remind me of some other classic films with similar themes centered around similar political scenarios. I found connections to Citizen Kane, The Last Hurrah, Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. It's not exactly an enjoyable movie, as Stark's unapologetic moral dissent leads to appalling results. Not that I was surprised by the overall trajectory once I saw the writing on the wall, but I didn't expect him to be such a despicable figure. The question that stays with you is, did power corrupt Willie Stark? Or was he a little too ambitious to begin with, and merely pounced on the opportunities as they came? I think those shades of ambiguity help give the story staying power, plus Ireland's and McCambridge's perspectives are compelling. I also really liked the tight editing, which keeps the story moving at a quick pace as it covers a lot of ground. See previous comments on shorthand, and the dynamic camera work, which often provides the film with an additional sense of freshness and realism. And that's what else I saw in November. I hope you enjoyed the video and this collection of reviews. You can find the titles listed in the description with links where applicable. Let me know what you think of any of these movies in the comments below, and I'll be back next Saturday with a new video. Thanks for watching.